السلام عليكم، صباح الخير، كي دايرين؟ لاباس عليكم؟ اش اخباركم؟ حنا اليوم جينا لهنايا لندن، سنترال لندن. جينا لديمز ريفر، نهر ديمز. نركب السفينة اليوم، يعني في ضباب ولكن الجو بارد حلو. كويس، نستنى هنا. شوفي مريم، احنا هناك، احنا في نمبر 2 اوريدي، الناس بيستنوا. نروح على قدام. احنا دابا ركبنا في هذاك السفينة، مشينا قدام شوية باش نقدروا نصوروا. نركب هنا عشان نقدر نصور. هنا يلا، لا مش هنا في الحقيقة. هلا اجي، تعالي هنا. بسم الله. ايوه كده علشان نقدر نصور كويس. بسم الله.
Refrain from smoking on this cruise. If you have a mobile phone, please switch it to silent now. Before we depart, please listen carefully to the following short safety announcement. This boat is licensed to carry 249 passengers. We maintain constant contact with Thames Navigation Service and the River Police at all times. This boat is fully equipped with a full complement of life jackets. The upper deck is easily accessible by steps either side of the lobby. In the unlikely event of an emergency, the captain will give you full instructions. For your own safety, and in particular for any young children on board, please remain seated as much as possible.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome on board the Silver Bonito. My name is Mark and I will be your guide for the duration of this cruise. Also on board we have our captains Dave and Steve, and downstairs we got my friend Tommy, and behind the bar willing to serve you is my friend Naimar. Now we'll be going through Westminster Bridge, we'll be turning round and then heading downstream all the way to Tower Bridge, where we'll sail through Tower Bridge or underneath the Tower Bridge, then we come back. Anyway, one of the rules on the boat is that we do wave at people on the bridges, so let's give them a wave. It's the only place in London where you can wave at a stranger and get a polite response.
يا رب ما يرموا علينا شيء من فوق. من فوق البريد شيء مشكلة، الله أعلم.
Right now, as we emerge from Westminster Bridge, on our right-hand side, we can see the new Palace of Westminster. Now, this is often referred to as the Houses of Parliament because that is what it contains. It contains the two houses, the House of Commons and the House of Lords. This is the home of British government. Now, it's called the New Palace of Westminster because the old one was destroyed by fire in 1834. And this magnificent building that we see today was designed by Sir Charles Barry and completed in 1859. Now, in the House of Commons, there are green seats, and you look up the House of Commons, and in the House of Lords, people are appointed or hereditary, and they take up that position. Now, towering up above us on the right-hand side, we can see that big square tower. That is the Victoria Tower. And at the base of the Victoria Tower, around the other side from where we are now, is the Sovereign's entrance. That is where the Queen goes when she goes to address Parliament, which she does every year. She is the second longest reigning monarch in the world's history. The only one who reigned longer was Louis XIV of France, who reigned for 72 years. Now on our right, that next bridge along is Lambeth Bridge. You can see the red arches painted to match the red of the House of Lords. And Westminster Bridge on our left that we've been through, and we will go through again, green to match the green of the House of Commons. Now in front of us sets up the Nightingale Training School for nurses. She had become well known for her work in the hospital camps of the Crimean War. And to this day, the nurses in St Thomas's Hospital are nicknamed Nightingales in honour of their founder, Florence Nightingale. Now, if you look on our left-hand side, we can see the Elizabeth Tower. Now, everyone calls this Big Ben, but Big Ben is in fact the bell inside. It is not the name of the tower itself. Big Ben weighs 13.7 tons and chimes the number of hours. It takes its name from Sir Benjamin Hall, who was the Commissioner of Works. We've always been rather thankful his name wasn't Richard. I think you worked that one out. Coming up now to Westminster Bridge, designed by Thomas Page, completed in 1862. Now, coming up on our right-hand side, we can see Capitol Hall. Capitol Hall was the home of London's local government until 1986, when the Greater London Council was abolished. Nowadays, it is the home of the Sea Life Aquarium, it is the home of the Shrek Adventure, it is the home of the London Dungeon, and the last minute London Eye, which was each one representing one of the London boroughs. It takes half an hour for a complete rotation, and on a clear day you can see up to 25 miles of the You can get married on the London Eye. As you reach the top, you make your vows, and after that it's all downhill. Coming up there, we have the Golden Jubilee Bridges, named after the Golden Jubilee of Her Majesty the Queen 20 years ago in 2002. They are footbridges designed in a way to fit in with the London Eye in the background. And between them is a hunger for the bridge, taking rail lines to Charing Cross Station. On our right hand side we have the Royal Festival Hall, built for the Festival of Britain of 1951. Now on our right hand side behind those trees is the National Theatre. Not the prettiest building in London, and Prince Charles once passed a comment that it looks like the back end of a nuclear power station. It looks a lot better on the inside. There are three rather nice theatres in there, and that's all part of the South Bank Centre. Now you can see there's a block atop a tower block with scaffolding on it. Now that used to be the home of ITV. It was OXO, the famous company that used to make stock cubes. And maybe they still do, but they're not there anymore. Now there is a ban on advertising along the banks of the River Thames, but OXO got round that by designing brickwork in such a way that it's an integral part of the structure. It doesn't count as signage, and they got away with it. Now OXO have long since gone, but that building is now the home of arts and crafts shops. There are bars, there are cafes in there. It's a nice place to go by the river. Now coming up in front of us on the left hand, it was built by Sir Christopher Wren following the Great Fire of London. It took 35 years to complete and was completed in 1710. 2 weeks ago there was a Thanksgiving service for 70 years reign of Her Majesty the Queen. That was held on the Friday. Unfortunately the Queen herself could not attend because of her mobility issues, and Prince Charles represented her. Inside the cathedral, down in the vaults, Sir Christopher Wren is buried, and so too is Nelson and the Duke of Wellington. You can get up to the top of St Paul's Cathedral, and you can get right above that dome, and it offers good views overlooking this part of London. So St Paul's Cathedral over there, we can see the dome quite clearly now. Now the area on our left is known as Blackfriars, and it takes its name from a monastery which stood here in centuries gone by, where the friars wore black robes. And we are coming up now to Blackfriars Bridge. Blackfriars Bridge was opened in 1869 by Queen Victoria. We've got some bridges in very quick succession. We can see the red pillars. They are the remains of the St Paul's Bridge, which carried the London, Chatham and Dover Railway across the river. We got rid of the bridge, but we couldn't get rid of the columns. And now this is Blackfriars Railway Bridge. Coming up on our right hand side, you'll see the building with the big square tower. That was built as Bankside Power Station, designed by Sir Giles Gilbert Scott. It was completed in 1958, reopened as a gallery of modern art. That is the Tate Modern. It is free to get in, although you may sometimes have to pay for specific exhibitions in there. The gallery itself is free. Now also in the year 2000 they built the next bridge that we're going to go underneath, which is the Millennium Bridge. The clue is in the name. It was a national embarrassment when it first opened because it wobbled to and fro. They had to close it down to make it safe, and it reopened about a year and a half later. It actually cost more money to put the bridge right than it did to build it in the first place. So this is the Millennium Bridge, and as you can see, perfectly safe towards traditional tools, and it had to have special dispensation to have a thatched roof, because thatched roofs were banned in London following the Great Fire of London. But the original Globe Theatre was destroyed by fire in 1613 during a performance of Henry VIII, when a cannon was fired and a stray spark set light to the thatch roof, and the old theatre burned down. Now we are coming up to our next bridge, which is Southwark Bridge. This is the least used bridge in London, so sometimes they name it the Lonely Bridge. But coming up on our right hand side, came to a tavern on Bankside to look across the river towards the flames of the Great Fire of London. Dr. Samuel Johnson came here, the man who compiled the first English dictionary, and also Charles Dickens. So that's the anchor. Now coming up on our right hand side, we will see what looks like a very old ship, but again, it is a replica. It's not as old as it looks. It is a replica of the Golden Hind, the ship in which Sir Francis Drake sailed all the way around the world, 1577 to 1580, becoming the first Englishman to go all the way around the world. He took lots of Spanish gold, as England and Spain were enemies at that time. When he got back, Queen Elizabeth I said, "Thank you very much," used the gold to clear the land, disbanded and taken stone by stone across the Atlantic, and now stands a lake in Lake Havasu City. Now this stretch of the River Thames is the Pool of London, and it was once a thriving international port as many ships sailed up the river, bringing goods with them from around the world. And we can see on our right hand side some of the old wharves and warehouses that stored all the goods that were brought up the river. Nowadays these buildings are put to different uses. We've got two large vessels coming up in front of us. The one on the right hand side is moored there permanently. It is HMS Belfast. It's a cruiser that saw action in the Second World War. It sunk the Scharnhorst, and it fired some of the opening shots onto the Normandy beaches to make way for the Allies to land on the 6th of June 1944, D-Day. HMS Belfast is part of the Imperial War Museum, and you can visit it and get on board HMS Belfast, see all about the history of the Second World War. The ship closer to us is the Silver Ring. Now I don't know anything about it, but this time yesterday it wasn't here. It's a cruise. We often get these large cruise ships coming up into the Pool of London, and of course when they come up, Tower Bridge does raise to allow them in. Right, coming up in front of us, London's most iconic landmark. This is Tower Bridge. Tower Bridge was designed by Sir Horace Jones. It took 8 years to build and was opened in 1894. It is not as old as it looks. Now the parts which are raised, nowadays it is raised by electric motors. Now river traffic still takes priority over road traffic, but the bridge does require 24 hours notice to lift. During the first year of Tower Bridge being open, the basculations were raised more than 6,000 times. It tells you how busy the river was in those days. It is still quite regularly. It's roughly 1,000 times a year at the moment. It is made of a framework of Scottish steel and clad in that Cornish granite that you see. The elaborate stonework is entirely cosmetic, and it was done deliberately so it fits in with the Tower of London, which is over on our left. I'll talk a bit more about the Tower of London in a short while. Now we will be turning round, and as we do so, look to your left if you want a good photo of Tower Bridge. You can visit the bridge. It is open as an attraction. You can walk along the walkways high above the river, and it offers excellent views looking upstream into London or downstream towards the sea. In front of us on the right is the area known as Rotherhithe, which is where the Mayflower set sail from, taking the Pilgrim Fathers across the Atlantic to the New World. That was in 1620. And in Rotherhithe there is a pub called the Mayflower on the side of the river. Well worth a visit. Now as we turn, we're looking towards the East End, towards Whitechapel and Spitalfields, where Jack the Ripper committed. Not know who Jack the Ripper was. But look to our left, ladies and gentlemen, that is the best view you're going to get in London. Tower Bridge. I'll get out of the way. You don't want my ugly mug in your pictures. Right, now as we start to head upstream, coming up on our right hand side, we will see the tower. Is the City of London. Now I know it is a bit confusing because London itself is made up of 2 cities and 32 boroughs. The 2 cities are the City of London and the City of Westminster, and the 32 boroughs are gathered around the outside. It's 25 miles all the way from one side of London to the other, or 40 kilometres if you prefer that measurement. But the City of London is where the Romans established the city of Londinium nearly 2,000 years ago. So although it looks newer with all its fancy new buildings, it is in fact the oldest part of London. It is one of the world's great trading centres. It's a centre of finance and commerce. The city of Westminster is the home of royalty and government. Now we are about to go underneath the Millennium Bridge once again. If we got any Harry Potter fans on board, if you've seen the film Harry Potter and the Half-Blood Prince, in the opening sequence of the film, the Millennium Bridge comes apart because it's attacked by Death Eaters. And there is another connection with Harry Potter because coming up on our right is the City of London School. One of its pupils was Daniel Radcliffe, Harry Potter himself.
يلا نتمنى يعجبكم الفيديو والى فيديو اخر.
And another fine view of the dome of St Paul's Cathedral.